The whole store was watching. Not the kind of watching that happens when something exciting occurs in a supermarket, a dropped display stand, a child running loose in the cereal aisle, the particular low-grade drama of a price dispute at the self-checkout. This was different. This was the kind of watching that happens when something wrong is occurring in public and everyone can see it and nobody is moving to stop it. Derek Holt, manager of the Fairview Value supermarket on Clement Street, was standing at the front of the store holding a beige apron in his right hand and pointing, finger extended, arm fully outstretched, at a 23-year-old cashier named Maya Collins, who was currently standing at the entrance doors with her arms around an elderly woman who appeared to be in some medical distress. "You left your register," Derek said. His voice carried the particular quality of authority misapplied, loud enough to be heard by the 12 people now watching from the checkout lanes and the bakery section and the customer service desk, deliberate enough to make the point that this was a performance as much as a reprimand. "You left your register without permission and you abandoned your post. Company policy is clear." Maya did not respond immediately. She was checking the elderly woman's breathing. She was speaking to her in a low, steady voice. She had one arm supporting the woman's back and one hand holding her wrist, not dramatically, not performing anything, but with the specific focused calm of someone who is managing something real. "Maya," Derek's voice sharpened. He took 3 steps toward her. "I'm talking to you." Maya looked up. "She was on the floor, Derek," Maya said. Her voice was very quiet, which somehow carried further than his shouting. "She collapsed at the entrance. I'm making sure she's all right." "That is not your job," Derek said. "Your job is the register. I have 3 lanes backed up because you decided. Someone call an ambulance," Maya said to the room. Not to Derek. To the room. A woman near the bakery took out her phone. Derek's arm was still extended. His finger was still pointing. "You're fired," he said. He held out the apron. "Collect your things." Maya did not collect her things. She stayed where she was, with her arms around the elderly woman, and waited for the ambulance, and did not let go. The elderly woman's name was Margaret Caldwell. She was 78 years old. She was the mother of Richard Caldwell, who had founded Caldwell Logistics at 31 and who had spent the 27 years since then building something that now employed 43,000 people across 14 countries and had a market capitalization that made the words Fairview Value supermarket feel very small by comparison. Derek Holt did not know any of this. He knew about the 3 backed-up checkout lanes. He knew about company policy. He held the apron in his outstretched hand until his arm grew tired, and then he put it on the customer service desk, and he went back to his office. What happened next shocked everyone, including Derek. Maya Collins had been working at Fairview Value for 14 months, not because she had intended to stay this long, not because it was the job she had imagined for herself, but because she was 23 years old and she was saving money, and sometimes the job you need and the job you planned for are 2 entirely different things, and you learn to work with what's in front of you. She was good at the register. She was quick and accurate, and she remembered the loyalty card numbers of the elderly regulars so they didn't have to search their purses. She knew which items rang up wrong because the pricing hadn't been updated on the system, and she knew which customers were having a bad day and needed the transaction to go smoothly without any complications. She had been working the register since 7 a.m. when she noticed the elderly woman near the entrance. Not because the woman was particularly remarkable, she was simply an older woman with silver hair and a cream cardigan, moving slowly with the particular careful concentration of someone for whom balance requires attention. Maya had noticed her the way she noticed things in the store, not dramatically, not as a performance of attentiveness, but as the natural function of someone who was paying attention to her environment. She had seen the woman stop. She had seen her reach for the door frame. She had been around the register and through the checkout lane before the woman's knees had fully buckled. She had caught her. Both arms. The woman's full weight. She had not thought about the register. She had not thought about company policy. She had thought, This woman is falling and I am the closest person. That was the full extent of Maya Collins's decision-making process. She was not calculating consequences. She was not performing heroism. She simply caught someone who was falling, the way any person would catch someone who was falling if they were close enough to do it. Derek Holt had been the manager of Fairview Value on Clement Street for 6 years. He was not, by any measure, a malicious person. He was a person who had built his professional identity around the consistent application of rules and who had found, over 6 years, that the consistent application of rules produced the outcomes he could be measured on: lane throughput, inventory accuracy, shrinkage reduction, and that outcomes he could be measured on were the outcomes that kept him employed. He had not seen the woman fall. He had seen a checkout lane unmanned. He had seen a member of his staff in an area of the store she was not assigned to. He had processed this information through the framework he used for processing all information and had reached the conclusion he generally reached when a member of staff was found outside their designated area, that this was a policy violation requiring immediate and visible correction. He had not, in 6 years of managing Fairview Value, made a habit of looking beyond the policy violation to the reason for it. The reason, in his experience, was almost always insufficient. The policy was the point. He was wrong in this instance in a way that was going to take him considerably longer than he expected to recover from. Margaret Caldwell had been shopping at the Fairview Value on Clement Street on Tuesday mornings for 3 years. Not because she needed to. Not because she couldn't afford the alternatives, she could afford the very best alternatives, a fact she managed with the same understated practicality she had brought to every aspect of her 78 years. She shopped at Fairview Value on Clement Street because it was 3 blocks from the flat she kept in the neighborhood and because she had decided, at some point in her 70s, that she preferred ordinary things done well over elaborate things done expensively. She had been experiencing dizzy spells for 3 weeks. She had not told Richard. She had an appointment with her doctor the following Thursday and she had decided that Tuesday's shopping was perfectly manageable and that she was not the sort of person who cancelled ordinary activities because of a dizziness that had not yet been diagnosed. She had been wrong about Tuesday's shopping. She remembered the floor coming toward her. She remembered the door frame. She remembered, very clearly, 2 arms catching her before she reached the floor, strong arms, quick arms, the arms of someone who had moved before the decision to move had been consciously made, and then a voice, low and steady, talking to her. Not the panicked voice of someone performing reassurance. The actual calm voice of someone who was not frightened. She had tried to say she was all right. The voice had said, "You don't need to talk. I've got you. Just breathe." She had breathed. She remembered the shouting from somewhere behind her, something about a register, something about policy, something about firing. She had understood, gradually, that the person holding her was the subject of the shouting and that the shouting was because the person had left their post to hold her. She had tried to say something. The voice had said, "Don't worry about that. Just breathe." Richard Caldwell received the call at 2:37 p.m. in the middle of a board meeting that he immediately stopped. He was at the hospital 12 minutes later. Margaret was stable. The diagnosis was a cardiac arrhythmia that had been producing the dizzy spells and had, on Tuesday morning, produced something more serious. She would be fine. She would require medication and monitoring and a conversation with Richard that she was already anticipating with the particular weariness of a woman who knows her son. Richard sat beside her bed and held her hand and asked the 3 questions he always asked in order. Was she in pain? Was she comfortable? What did she need? She answered them in order, no, yes, and then she told him about the girl. Not the hospital staff. The girl at the supermarket. The one who had caught her. The one who had stayed with her on the floor of the entrance, talking to her, holding her weight, until the ambulance had arrived. The one who had, according to Margaret, been publicly fired for doing it. Richard had very still eyes. People who had sat across from him in negotiations noted this, the way he listened with the particular stillness of someone for whom words were data, to be received completely before being processed. He listened to his mother describe the girl at the supermarket. He asked 2 questions. He received the answers. Then he took out his phone and made a call that was not to his driver. What happened next was described by the 8 people who witnessed it in the Fairview Value on Clement Street the following Thursday morning, as the most precise and non-dramatic reckoning any of them had ever seen. Richard Caldwell did not arrive at the supermarket in a convoy or with an entourage. He arrived alone, in a car he was driving himself, wearing a jacket without a tie. He asked for the manager. He was shown to Derek's office. He sat down across from Derek's desk. He introduced himself. He said his mother was Margaret Caldwell. He said she had collapsed in Derek's store on Tuesday morning and that an employee named Maya Collins had left her register to prevent her from hitting the floor and had remained with her until the ambulance arrived. He said that Maya Collins had been fired for this. He said he wanted to understand the reasoning. Derek explained about the register. He explained about company policy. He explained about lane throughput and the importance of consistent standards. Richard listened to all of it with his very still eyes. Then he said that he was on the board of the property group that owned the building in which Fairview Value's corporate offices were headquartered. He said this quietly, without emphasis, as a factual context. He said that he would be making a call to the regional director of Fairview Value that afternoon. He said he was not there to threaten anyone, and that this was true, and that he was telling Derek this because it was honest to tell someone when a consequence was coming rather than allowing it to arrive without warning. He stood up. He thanked Derek for his time. He left. The regional director called Derek at 4 p.m. Maya Collins received a call at 4:45. She was offered her job back, with an apology and a salary adjustment. She was also told that a separate call had come in for her personally, not from the company, from a private number, regarding a position at Caldwell Logistics' Community Outreach Foundation that was currently looking for a coordinator. She took the interview. She was offered the role. The salary was 4 times what she had made at the register. Margaret Caldwell recovered fully and returned to shopping at Fairview Value on Tuesday mornings, which she continued to do on the principle that one does not reorganize one's life around a single bad Tuesday. The staff, who now knew who she was, were attentive in the way that people are attentive when they have been given a significant context they did not previously have. She was polite about it. She had the loyalty card that meant she did not have to search her purse. Derek Holt was not fired. He was moved to a different store and given a training module on emergency response protocols that he completed in 47 minutes. Whether this changed anything fundamental about him was a matter on which his new staff would develop opinions over time. Maya Collins spent her first week at the Caldwell Foundation in a state of the specific disorientation that accompanies a life being rearranged faster than it can be processed. By the second week she had begun to settle. By the third she had understood what the work was and had decided, with the same uncomplicated clarity she had brought to catching a falling woman in a supermarket doorway, that this was where she was supposed to be. She did not describe what had happened as a miracle or a reward or the universe returning a kindness. She described it the way she experienced it, as a sequence of events that had followed naturally from a single instinctive act, which was that she had seen a person falling and she had been close enough to catch them and she had caught them. She didn't understand what else she could have done. Richard Caldwell, when asked about it by a journalist who had picked up the story, said only that his mother had been helped by someone at significant personal cost and that he had attempted to make the cost less than it had been. He said the world contained considerably more Maya Collinses than it sometimes appeared to. He said he hoped they knew who they were. Margaret, reading the interview from her armchair in the flat 3 blocks from the Garden Square, thought that she had known who Maya Collins was the moment 2 arms had caught her before she reached the floor. She had been paying attention to the right things. Not all of us are. But some of us are. And that, in the end, is enough.